to move my hands out.
And just do what, just be.
Try.
Just what
Don't look
comes
at the
nat-
camera.
Just what comes naturally.
You what, Brett?
Don't look at the camera.
Just
T-shirt,
just
you
have a
reckon?
little chat about something that you can remember about.
Oh, no.
We shan't remember anything
Where
now,
do
Well,
shall
going for
we?
tea.
You might
Going for
get
tea.
completely blank.
Going for tea. You
Going
can
for
remember.
tea?
No, that was better.
Yes, we did. Yes, we went.
We used to walk.
used to walk up the canal, up the towpath, from Alrewas, right along the towpath to Fradley Junction, and then we had our tea with Gran and Grandad. If it was a lovely day, we sat out on the canal bank. Other than that, we all squashed into the boat.
Before more time.
That was before
Yes,
your
that's
time.
right. It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
It was.
Brian, imagining that we don't know anything at all about your grandparents, would you just tell us about your grandparents, about how they were in the census and what they did?
Yeah, well, there were general carriers on this canal, between on the Trent Mersey Canal, that is, between Preston Brook, which is Liverpool way, and Shardlow, which is down here, Derby way, and they carried more or less anything in the early days. Our association, us Burtons with Alrewas, really started in 1901, when my dad was recorded in the census of that year here at Alrewas, and it was a coincidence really, because they didn't live here at the time. That's right, isn't it? They didn't live here then. And
I don't think they got
I
a
wouldn't
house
think
then.
they did.
because their address was given as a Gandhi boat, the canal, Alrewas. They hadn't got a house, so that's where it all started. That's where it all kicked off. Subsequently, they did. I don't know the exact year. I don't think either you two do. When they moved into Ash's Yard.
No idea.
When my granny and granddad moved into Ash's Yard.
No, but I was born in 24, and Mum and Dad took it over in 22, didn't they, when they married?
Yes,
So it was prior to that.
prior to that. Yeah, it was in the early 1900s,
That's
wasn't
right.
it? When they
Yes,
rented the
when they
house
actually came.
at Ash's Yard.
At Ash's
yeah.
Yard,
yeah.
yeah. And then they had a cottage and a stable rented, didn't they?
Yeah, in Ash's Yard.
In Ash's
Mm.
Yard.
Yeah. Yeah, and stable at the top of
At
the top of the yard.
The top of the yard,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the other things that you told me, Brian, was what their typical work would be like.
Yeah. Well, my dad did relate this to me. It was just one of the few things he did tell me. He said they'd turn the boat out from Preston Brook, say around about lunchtime. They'd travel all that day, all that night, all the next day, tie the boat up at Weston-on-Trent, just outside of Stafford, round about 11 to midnight on the second day. And my dad said my granddad used to like to have been on his way by the time the clock struck 3 a.m, so they just have something to eat and drink, grab an hour's sleep, and on the way, then straight down here, then straight through to Shardlow and stop again. And that was...
That was the working life.
They could walk for England, boatmen. They could walk forever.
Dad couldn't
He could, yeah.
Yes,
He could outwalk me.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he was 60 odd, he could still outwalk me. When
Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was very hard work, very,
Just stop. Have you changed? So just tell me that.
My grandparents, George and Clara Burton, worked this canal in the late 1800s and early 1900s between Preston Brook and Shardlow.
Okay, lovely. And the other thing you told me, Brian, was about an incident in Harecastle Tunnel. Start that as though you're telling me the story again.
Oh yes, there was this situation in the tunnel where the towpath collapsed underneath a horse. Called pitch black, you could see nothing at all. And my granddad made his way to the front of the boat, tied the horse to the front of the boat, and then they pushed the boat through the tunnel with the boat supporting the horse, keep the horsey head out of the water, till they got to the other end, and then pulled him out onto the bank, like, you know. They had 9 days there, my dad said, because they did look after the horses, and 9 days under the farrier, and before he released the horse again to into work, what he considered working condition.
Can you just change the shot slightly? So just tell me, Brian, how they got it out of the tunnel.
Well, they must have what they call legged it out, which is probably on the roof, and lie on your back on the cabin top, and push the boat along with your feet. That's and probably the walls as well, to just get a bit of momentum, bit of momentum going.
Do you want to do that again?
Yeah.
But that's great. I mean, this
Okay,
is really good.
It is,
and how they got the boat out of the
Out of
tunnel,
it.
Okay,
and the
yeah.
fact that it was both your grandma and your granddad who did it.
Yeah. So the horse was in the water, tied to the front of the boat, and they use this legging method, where they lie on the boat and push the boat either on the roof of the tunnel or on the walls. You get a bit of momentum going, and the boat will keep going. Then it's not too hot. I mean, I've done it myself, but and it's not too bad once you get it going. It'll, you can keep it going until you get out of the tunnel. It's all right.
Great.
All right.
Yep.
All
Fine.
right with that bit.
Yeah, that's great. You were telling me about going up and having tea and sort of playing on the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like
Yeah.
to tell me about that?
Well, what we used to like to do was get the mop, didn't we?
Yeah.
Clean the top of the boat and
And wash the sides,
the side.
sides
Yeah,
of the cabin.
It was just all entertainment to us
yeah.
to, well, be there really with Gran and Grandad. And
Mm.
Okay, can we just stop? Sorry, we've got a teapot up your nose here.
oh, right.
Just tell me
Okay.
about when you used to go
Yes.
up and
Yeah.
visit your grandparents.
Well, Gran used to say, "You'll be all right this time because the boat's empty, so you can play down in there now." And we used to have the whole of the bottom of the boat to play and do what we liked, really. We used to take games up with us to entertain ourselves. My mum always took something with us to keep us entertained. Then at night, I think the highlight was to go across to the Swan and have our lemonade and crisps, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
And
And
the
it was-
packets of biscuits.
Yes, and it was the crisps with the little blue packet of salt
Yeah.
in it. And,
Yes, but also for tea, we had to go and get some milk
yes,
from the farm, because there was a farm behind the Swan then. But, because we didn't like the tin milk that they had to use, we wouldn't drink the tea with that.
no, so we used to fetch them.
We used to fetch the fresh milk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So can you tell me again about going that you used to go up to walk up to Fradley Junction and
Yes.
just hang on a second. Just hang on a second, Betty. Okay, either of you, it didn't matter
Yeah.
which one.
Well, in the beginning, but Avis wasn't. She was still in the pushchair when I can go that far back because I am 5 years old. And so my mum used to meet George and I out of school, and we all walked up the towpath to Fradley Junction. And oh, there's Gran's boat. When we got in sight of it, it was so exciting to us, and it was just wonderful to just run into them and where am I?
That's all right. So, do we need to change? Do we need to change?
Okay.
Right.
When the boat was loaded, and often it had carboys of acid, and we were instructed then to keep well away from the acid because it was dangerous. It would burn our legs if we got any of us.
When we sat out on the bank, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that was when we couldn't play on the boat, that we had to play on the bank. And the reason on a Sunday afternoon that we used to go Sunday lunchtime was because they couldn't go any further than Fradley Junction on a Sunday, because the little swing bridge was across, and they weren't allowed to move on a Sunday. That was locked, and in those days you didn't work on Sundays.
Lovely. What are we on? One. Okay. So, as though I don't know anything about it,
Mm.
you could tell me like you did before about Grandma's finger.
The finger. Well, what she was opening the
Yes.
Can you just start? 'Cause
Gran.
Yeah.
Gran was such a strong person, and really nothing ever got in her way of whatever she wanted to do, and a strong character in every way, and it showed up a lot really when she damaged her finger. She was opening the lock with the
Windless.
and it chopped the end of her finger clean off. And I think she just thought, oh, blow that. And she simply picked it up and stuck it back on her finger and wrapped it up with a handkerchief and carried on doing what she'd gone to do.
Bound it like, I remember saying they bound it like that, didn't they?
Yes, over the top. Yeah.
And then
And so it was permanently bent, her finger.
90 degrees, complete 90 degrees.
Yeah.
and then she realised it was on it was a ring finger, and she said, so I had to shift that, you know. She said, I had to get my ring on another finger.
Yeah.
And she did, she did all this, and
Yeah.
like I say, she was such a strong person.
When can you just go to a close?
Yeah, okay.
So
Mm.
just tell us what
Yeah.
what your grandma said when
Yeah.
she did it.
Well, when Gran did this, she said she just picked it up and clapped it back on again and tied it on with a hanky. Yeah.
Lovely.
Mm.
Okay.
Do you want to just... or do you want some words as well?
Is that I don't know, just stop it there. What we
Yeah, about the joy and the pride that you had.
Yes, I was just going to say, my granddad used to send such detailed letters to my mum, really, of exactly where he would be, at exactly what time. And he really had got it to a fine detail, and she knew exactly what time we had to leave home and get along that towpath. And it was absolutely beautiful handwriting. For that era, it was really fantastic. I do wish I'd got one of his letters. I really do.
Mm.
No, I never saw one then.
No,
No,
it
you
was
wouldn't.
a most beautiful handwriting.
And so you were always really happy to go and see them.
Oh,
yes.
it was a great joy. Absolute great joy, yeah. Like I say, it was always, oh, there's Grand Boat. Yeah,
And there were times, surely, that we took friends with us, didn't
we did, yes.
we? You know, I remember Maisie going along with
Yeah.
me, and Betty Owen.
Yes, Bet would come with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes, we didn't just go on, just us. It was friends as well that went to them.
Just hold it for a minute. If we just want to get.
Were proud of it, but they weren't. Probably Gran and Grandad
sorry,
would.
could you sorry to stop you.
Yes, it's all right.
But if you imagine, don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
No.
So proud, you were proud that they were boat people.
Yeah,
for example.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I think that we were proud of them being boat people, but whether they were or not, I don't know, because I think they were looked down on in some ways. Why, I don't know. Because
I think it's great. I think I was more fortunate than other kids.
Yeah.
that my grandparents had been on the canal, because there was nobody else round here.
No, it was heritage.
No.
It was
That's
all
right, yeah,
heritage.
yeah. It was
Yeah.
great, you know. It's,
No,
I was really chuffed about it.
yeah. But
Well, and then we had an added, with my dad working up there, it wasn't to do actually with the boats. He worked, we thought, on the canal. But those days it came under the old LMS railway. And so lots of times when we went up there, my dad was already up there, and wasn't he?
yes,
At the yard,
yeah,
as they
at
called
the
it.
yard. Yeah.
It all tied in so wonderfully. And
That's where the British Waterways Cafe and all that is now. You know, it's that was the yard.
Yeah, it was
The maintenance
Oh,
yard.
is that what
yard.
it is now?
Yeah, so yeah, oh,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
all
very, I haven't been, but
No.
I believe it's very nice, that
It is, yeah.
that cafe.
Yeah, yeah.
You've been?
I've been, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
In a car park. Of course, there wasn't a car park then, was With a bike shed.
Yes, they used to go on the bike. And if it was snowy, they used to walk.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah,
Okay, lovely. We need to.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another time I remember my uncle telling us about a horse they had that was an ex-fire engine horse, because in those days the horses had to draw the fire engine. And every time a bell rang, the horse just shot off along the bank. They
Just bolted.
They just couldn't
That'd be
control
exciting.
it really. And but it was really quite a laugh, I think, when this horse just took off.
It heard the bell.
Yes, no matter what bell it was, it just went.
Lovely.
Uh,
Right. Thanks. So, Brian, you're going to tell us about other carriage from Manchester and who.
Yeah, well,
carried
say in the early days there were general carriers and worked this canal down from Liverpool down to Shardlow. But in the latter years they carried acid in glass carboys, and they carried it from Trafford Park in Manchester, from Courtaulds Works down into the Black Country, into Wolverhampton. That's the reason why Avis and Betty met to meet them at Bradley Junction, because that's where they turned up the Coventry Canal, you know, and headed in for the Black Country. It was a bit dodgy stuff, I think, that they carried about. You didn't want it certainly anywhere near your eyes, and not on your skin
Not
or
in your
anywhere.
clothes,
Well,
right?
it would burn you. It was really nasty stuff to be dealing with. Actually, it's perhaps safer on the canal than it is on the road. It's on the road now. So maybe it was a better job then.
Okay, right. Lovely. Thanks. Okay. So again, remembering that I don't know
You
anything
don't know,
about
yeah.
it, and you know, it needs to be about school and Mr. McKnight and testing and then sliding.
Yeah,
and
well,
Yeah, yes. Well, there was a time when we had a very hard winter, and the canal froze so much that the whole school, after Mr. McKnight and Mr. Stubbs had been on to test the ice to see that it was safe, that at playtimes the whole school was turned onto the canal, and the two bridges, Mays and Kent's, were the boundaries. You could slide between those two for the playtime.
Yeah, I remember he used to drum it. McKnight used to drum it into us kids. You don't go on the canal until you see me on the canal.
That's right.
And then one night he'd come out from school. We'd all get turned out from school, and there he'd be standing on the ice. And when you saw him on the ice, then you could go and have a slide. Then you could run down the towpath and slide across the canal. It was in the days before global warming, you know.
Can we go tight on?
Do you want names?
Well, if you can remember them. But start as though it's a story that you're telling me that I don't know
Yes.
anything about.
All that I remember about the ice being so severe was the one year that there was a Swiss lady lived in the village, and she really did long for some ice and snow, and she came. I worked then in the post office, and she came to tell us that I skated into Burton today. She said the ice was firm enough. Oh, she had enjoyed herself, really enjoyed herself.
But that would be the same year, I would think, that Mr. Statham borrowed a
Oh,
horse
oh.
from Malabas farm to deliver the mail from Alrewas post office up to Fradley Junction, because he couldn't get on his bike. So he borrowed this big cart horse and had the mailbags and everything on the horse.
It was an absolute
Yeah.
picture, that was. It was
Yeah.
wonderful.
And
We
I-
had lots of pictures of it actually in the post office at that time.
Two. The other thing, what we're on a two.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's on that too now.
Yeah, that's all right. The other thing that you told me about was paddling.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
By contrast, in the warm weather, we just paddled and paddled in Walkfield. The canal was so shallow and low. There was never any fears for us really, and I never ever heard of any problems or children falling in, and we just enjoyed it. Sometimes along with the cows.
Yes, when the cows were turned out at night.
There were no houses
They-
across there then.
They would walk in at the side of us, but nobody
Yeah,
bothered.
nobody bothered.
Okay, lovely. Thanks.
McKnight.
Robert.
Robert.
When
I
we
can
do
see
the
him now, stood on the middle of the canal when he used to come out of school.
Mm.
Yes, yeah.
when we do this next bit, this is what we do. Sorry. You can tell us a story. I mean, you'll be telling us it at another time, but you can tell us a story about when the boat went down and your dad fetched it back. Actually tell Avis and Betty as if they don't know.
Oh yeah, after you had gone and I was at home all by myself.
Sorry, you need to be looking at Brian.
Oh, at
this
Brian,
point,
right,
yeah.
yeah.
After you two had left home, and I was at home by myself, we was having our tea one night, and this knock come on the door. River was up, well up, and I heard this bloke say, I was tucking into my egg and chips, and I heard this bloke say, "You George Burton?" And my dad says, "Oh yeah," a bit nervously. He says, "Because I'm down the river with my boat," he says, "and I daren't bring it up the river." He said, they said, "You're the bloke to bring it up." And right, well, this story with this boat, he was a bit nervous about bringing up a lot of water on the river, about bank full, about level with the towpath, you know. And my dad.
We were at Wheelock with all my dad's relations, and they'd all been boat people as well. And as children that we were then,
Okay.
you have never... And then she used to get in quite a temper if the men weren't there for their Sunday lunch. And this one particular Sunday, she took his dinner out into the road. And
There was a man waiting at the bus stop,
this
and
was,
she
and gave it to a man standing at the bus.
Avis, you'd like to start us off by telling Betty something nice? And
Well, all I can think about to say is when we were at Road Heath and we used to go to Louisa's.
Yes.
And Louisa always had the chip pan on, no matter what time of day it was. And she always wanted to know if we wanted a butty of chips. And we're always called butties of chips in Louisa in Cheshire, weren't they? Brilliant.
Louisa.
Don't talk, Betty. Just listen.
Louisa lived
By the side of the canal in Road Heath.
yes, and that's where they had that steel lock into it at one time.
That's right.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
fancy lock, didn't
Yeah.
they?
She was
Yeah.
Dad's cousin.
Who were the people that lived in the bungalow? You know, when you went,
Ted and Nellie.
who were they?
Ted and they were cousins as well of Dad. Who
Great.
worked.
Right through the Second World War.
I'm sure it was
Sure,
after.
it must have been
It was
that.
after. Yes, I'm sure it was after the Second World War, because that was when he went. He carried he drove the tankers.
Yeah, I
Then
know,
he came
with
off
the-
the boats and carried this acid
Yeah,
back on the
yeah,
road.
yeah,
he
that's
learned to
right,
drive, and he drove one of the tankers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was in the late 40s, wasn't it?
Yes.
Must have been.
Yes. Yeah. Mm.
So,
Oh, but
do you think should we?
So the war's before my time, really.
yes.
Yes,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah, definitely.
just a bit.
Just a
So,
touch.
Brian, are you going to tell us about the last Burton? who
Well,
was just hang on. The last Burton who was a boatman.
The last Burton who was a boatman was my Uncle Arthur, and by then they'd got engines. They got diesel engines in the boats, and he still carried the nasty stuff, the bad stuff, the acid. And he had the boat brand new, the Skylark it was, built at Yarwoods at Northwich, and just the exact point when he finished on the canals, I don't know, but he when he did finish with the boats, he carried on with the same company and carried the stuff till his retirement on the road.
Right, thank you. Can I just sort of click?
The horse used to be stabled across at the Swan,
Yes, behind the pub.
behind the
So
pub.
could you? What are we on? So could you start? Is it? Sorry, is it Betty who's going to tell us about this beating horse draw?
Yeah,
Yeah. You can do it too if you like.
I'll prompt you in if you want.
I can remember.
Just hang on.
Oh, right, sorry.
Two. No, come on.
Yeah, you can turn the camera, can't you?
Oh, this, okay.
Yeah.
Betty, is it as if I don't know anything about it? Are you going to tell me about the fact that your grandparents had a horse-drawn boat, and anything that you can remember about it?
I must just say that I can remember Gran and Grandad's horse-drawn boat. That was the Ivy. And when they did tie up at Fradley Junction, he was taken across to a stable at the back of the pub at Fradley Junction, which is the Swan. And there he was stabled while they were tied up at... And we always used to love to go and see him. And that was when we went and got our lemonade and our crisps.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else on that? No?
No.
No? Anything else on?
The last Burton boatman was my uncle Arthur. He had by then they had diesel engines in the boat. The Skylark, built at 1935 at Yarwoods at Northwich, and he carried the nasty stuff, the acid, through part of the war years. We're not quite sure when he finished, but then the canal trade had finished anyway. The canals were getting into very poor state by then, and he worked for the same company, carrying the same chemical, but in a tanker on the road.
Okay, lovely. Okay.
Where did I stop? At one time, when we used to go up, Gran had... they were on the boat Ivy, and that was horse-drawn. And the horse was taken across to a farm at the back of the pub at Fradley Junction, which was the Swan, and he was stabled there, and that's when we used to go and stop across there then and get our lemonade and our crisps. And
The teapot in the middle of the table was the one that was on the boat then, and more often than not used for our tea in the afternoon.
And then in the boat also there was Gran had got the most lovely pieces of horse brass, and the plates that were all ribboned, and they were so pretty. Her boat was a picture. It really was a picture. Her range shone, black leaded.
And the brass on the range as well, wasn't there?
Yes.
The
Yes, all
handles and
round
the knob on the oven door was brass, and that was brilliant.
The wood parts were scrubbed until they were almost white. It really was a picture.
Lovely. That was smashing. I'm glad